It is Monday, August the 4th, and it's the next edition of the Jamie Dickenson podcast. And with me today is our office manager, chief executive officer, head of test prep. This man wears all kinds of hats here. We have Ethan Chase with us. So good morning, Ethan.
Good morning, Jamie. How are you?
Good. So we've got some new things cooking here at the Tutoring Center, which we want to tell everyone about. And we're going to talk about why we're doing it. You know, here we are always evolving to meet the real world needs of students and their families. And so this fall, we're launching a brand new 8-week, fully online and adaptive ACT, SAT test prep courses. And we want to let everyone know why we're making the change.
So, Jamie, why the sudden change in the test prep courses?
You know, I did business consulting with Kevin Harrington, one of the sharks on the Shark Tank. And he made a statement that if you're doing business today the way you were 2 years ago, in 2 years, you'll be out of business. And I've never forgotten that. So I feel like we're always trying to go back and revisit our services because things change. You know, the pandemic changed a lot. Before the pandemic, we never did tutoring online. Never. People didn't like it. People didn't want it. They didn't feel like they should pay for it if it was online. And now the whole world's gone online. So you have to adapt to changes both for your clients and for your staff. So I've been thinking about what we were going to do in test prep going forward. And so for everyone out there that doesn't know my story, I was one of those straight A overachieving crazy chicks. Well, I still am, but I was a terrible test taker and it really damaged me. And I blame it all on my parents because my dad was an 8th grade history teacher. So guess who didn't get the golden horseshoe? Me. Not a good day in my house. And then my mom was a math teacher. And so I was fast-tracked in my math. So I was in pre-cal trig by the time I was in 10th grade. And everybody kept telling my mom, oh, she should take the ACT. She's smart, blah, blah, blah. I take the ACT in the 10th grade, get my scores back. Guess what my lowest score was? Math. My mom's head spinned around. Green crap came out of her mouth. She squalled. It was just not a good day in my house. So my parents damaged me when it came to taking standardized tests, you know, because between my mom and my dad, they had me completely convinced that I did not know how to do standardized testing. And the CPA exam literally about put me in the grave. That was the most horrid thing ever, most horrid test ever. So what happened was when I started doing college planning, I realized that there's a lot of money attached to standardized test scores, a lot of money. And I was farming out my standardized test prep through the Princeton Review, and we were doing them down at the University of Charleston. This was when my office was upstairs. Well, when I moved down and opened the tutoring center, the first thing I said was, I'm bringing the test prep in-house. Of course, you know the good little accountant I am. I'm not going to leave any money on the table. That was 2010. I spent the whole summer trying to figure out how I wanted to do test prep and how I could get kids to not be afraid of standardized testing. Now, first of all, it is such a hemorrhoid. Oh my gosh. There's no way we can make it fun or sexy as hard as we try. But knowing what I know now that I'm old and wise, you can actually teach yourself how to take these tests or have somebody like us teach you how instead of you just stressing out over it. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how we were going to do our test prep. And over these past years, it has really evolved. And now the fact that our practice has dramatically changed, my kids were from here in Huntington. That was pretty much my kids. And now we've got kids all over the country. And so we're doing a lot more work with kids online. And Ethan, once we put you in the position of manager this past year and you're on the phone, you're listening to parents and kids and how frustrated they are about standardized testing. So we really set out to completely revisit how we're doing it. So we have a brand new format which creates a more consistent experience for all the students, regardless of where they are, their schedule, you know, without sacrificing that personalized support, which is what we're known for. I feel 100% that, kids can go onto YouTube or Khan Academy or wherever and teach themselves something. But you know what they can't give them? They can't give them confidence like we do. Like we pump them up. We're like, you can do that. We love you. You will do it. We get excited. We scream and clap when they do well. We also give hope to the parents that their kids can actually, do the standardized testing. So when we started revisiting this, I do a lot of, college planning with kids, not just high school planning, but once the kids are in college. And most of the university classes are now going asynchronous and online. So I kept seeing that, like when I was working with kids on their class schedule for college, asynchronous and online. So I said to Ethan, you know what? This is what they're all going to have to do in college. When they get to college, they have to do asynchronous and online classes. So why don't we just do it now? So that's kind of how we formed this, because our old methods just couldn't keep up with the test prep changes. The ACT has dramatically changed, the SAT has dramatically changed. Yet, promised scholarship, the kids still have to take the science section on the ACT as of now. Yet on the ACT, it's an elective now. So there's a lot of questions. I think parents don't really know what they're doing, and it's amazing to me. I feel like our practice is a three-legged stool. You've got college planning, you've got tutoring, and you've got test prep. And in my opinion, every kid, I don't care who you are, at some point needs all three. And so it's amazing to me that people come in to just do test prep, and you say, what do you want to do with your scores? Well, she's just got to get her scores up. Up to what? Well, just up. So I think a lot of the problem is kids don't have a goal. They don't know what their scores should be. They don't know why they're doing what they're doing. And I think a lot of times people spend too much time talking at a teenager instead of to a teenager.
And I agree with you, Jamie. It's crazy that parents don't even know how these standardized tests even work anymore. I get the question all the time, what test is used for in-state institutions and what are used for out-of-state institutions. And a lot of people don't know that universities are test optional, test blind, or what those terms even mean. So I think it is important to adapt to the changing times because, like you said, both tests are rapidly changing at all times. That's another good reason on why we have to change how we structure these courses, because they're going to continue to change like they've changed a million times in the past.
Yeah, so if you think about, Ethan, like I say, you're on the phone and you know what it is. What was it specifically that when you talk to parents and you talk to kids, what specifically was not working about our old test prep method? We've got a lot more accountability in this new format than we did before. And another thing I think what's interesting is parents will always say, well, we want you to hold the kids accountable. But then in the old way, when we tried to keep them accountable, they'd be like, well, he's not going to do it. We'll just stop it. So we've solved that because now you can't stop it. But we've also made it longer because I think that was important. Because in a 5-week format, the way we had it before, whereas now we're 8 weeks, if the kids missed 1 week, then that's 20% of the class, and they were way behind. They had to make up 40% of it the next time. But did you feel like it was engagement? Like, did you feel like people didn't think the outcomes were good, not flexible enough? From talking on the phone, what did you think some of the major complaints, which we don't have very many complaints, but ways that we can make it better? That's what we wanted to do.
Yeah, so with our old format, I think one of the biggest issues was, of course, flexibility. So students who are in sports, they can't make it from 6 to 8 o'clock every night. It's just impossible. And then to go back and watch Zoom recordings, at least for me, I'm sure, Jimmy, you agree, it's not the most beneficial format to watch someone just teach from a recording. You can't ask questions. You have no idea really what they're talking about. Another issue with how we used to do things is students are in a classroom, for 8 hours, 5 days a week, spending 2 more hours in the office in a small group setting. It's just not desired. So having them do it, I think now at home from the comfort of their home with us guiding and monitoring, giving recommendations, they don't have to worry about being around people they don't know, afraid to ask questions. They don't have to worry about feeling stupid. They're not talking in a group of people. They're talking directly to us and our staff.
Okay, so you've pretty much been the one that's done all the research and done all the, practice tests with the company that we're going to use. You've pretty much been the one that has drafted the whole thing. So why don't you tell everybody what's included? Because most people don't even know how we were doing it the old way. So we'll just focus on the new way, and then we can explain why we're doing it that way. So why don't you just tell everybody what's included? First of all, we're doing ACT and SAT prep. The fee is $599, and that includes all of this. Now, if you're a graduation club member, which is the college planning program, you're going to get 10% off on this. But why don't you just tell people what's included in the whole prep course?
Yeah. So with our new prep course, we'll start with the October 18th ACT and then subsequent test dates. So it'll include full access to our adaptive ACT and SAT prep software. So that means 24/7. So if you're out of town, if you want to hop on at 2 a.m., you can do that. It also includes some weekly progress tracking and comprehensive updates for parents as well as students. So me, or if I'm not in office, one of our staff will go through each of the students' information. If they notice, okay, Sally is struggling with geometry, she's not improving, we'll make recommendations on whether she needs tutoring, some specific lessons on the software, and that kind of turns into another feature of this program or this prep course is all students get 10% off of tutoring. So that's in-house or online private tutoring sessions. Outside of that, there'll be 16 live Q&A sessions. So every Tuesday and Thursday for an hour, I'll hold a Zoom call. Students can join if they need to, or if everything's going smoothly, they don't have to. Other than that, there'll be 3 full-length proctored ACT and SAT tests. I'll get with the group of students, determine a test date or a test time that works best for the group. We'll hop on a Zoom and do a proctored test. From there, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of practice questions for every section, so math, English, reading, science. And then the last feature, what's included, is instant feedback and detailed explanations from your progress on the software. And I think that about sums it up. I will say some expectations or how it'll be structured. We expect students to do it 5 to 10 hours every week. And of course that sounds daunting, but if you break it down into, daily time spent, I think it's about 43 minutes a day to get 5 hours. So it's not too much. You can hop on before school, after school, during lunch break or class breaks. And like I said, those twice a week meetings, they're not required. If you have questions or just need assistance, you can hop on, but if not, there's no need to.
Okay, Ethan, so we're going to go through step by step what's included in the course and what's not in the course. First of all, it's a fully adaptive test prep program. So it's fully personalized practice that adjusts to the student's strengths and weaknesses. And I think that is so important because when you put kids in a class, you got a kid that's trying to make a 22 on the ACT, you got a kid that's trying to make a 32, and the teacher has to teach to the middle. I love programs that have an algorithm in it because that's really how you can truly personalize it to each student. They can figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then we can dial down with the private tutoring that you were talking about where they get 10% off, because part of it is I just felt like doing the whole shotgun approach of like, let's just put it out there for everybody. All the kids have different strengths and weaknesses. For the kids were online for math for the pandemic, kids' math skills are still so weak. I mean, that's the biggest thing we tutor here. So I really wanted something that was adaptive, that could figure out what their strengths and weaknesses were. So first of all, the platform I think is great, and I think kids are going to love it. The 16 live support sessions, again, you alluded to it earlier, that's very difficult to get kids together. You are going to do twice weekly question and answer Zoom calls to address any questions, build strategies, help them with any issues they have. They can attend any of them or all of them. So if you think about this prep course, they're doing it by themselves, but they're not alone. They have all the support that they need from us. I firmly feel that full-length practice tests are very important. I wouldn't have a tutoring center if, 1, kids read the directions, and 2, turned their homework in. So I think the biggest thing about test prep is to teach them the directions of the test. Because that way, when they go to the test, they don't waste time trying to figure out what they're supposed to do. They already know that. So you're going to do 3 full length practice tests with them online that you're going to proctor online. So tell us in your head how you envision that working. When you get a group of kids together, you're going to figure out what works best for them when to take a practice test, and then they're going to do it all together. So tell everybody what you think that will accomplish.
I think by holding proctored sessions, it'll hold the students accountable. No one wants to sit down for 3 hours and take a practice test. I don't want to. I'm sure, Jamie, you don't want to do it either. By holding live sessions where students have to attend, they're forced isn't a good word for it, but basically forced to do the practice test during the correct time. And it's not going to be, I'm watching everyone's screens, but during 3 hour session, I know that you're there doing a practice test. We're all getting it done at the same time. And then from there, we do our adaptive study plan, move on with the course. But with these proctored sessions, one thing, especially with the old prep course, we'd ask the students to do a full-length practice test after, 2 weeks, and they just wouldn't do it. And when they're not here and they're not on a session, we couldn't have them take a practice test during one of the 2 hour sessions. That would take up the whole time. There'd be no instruction. So with this new format, we're able to have them do it at home, during the allotted time, and then continue their adaptive study plan.
Well, and you brought up an important point. Now, let me tell you something. I don't take money lightly. So if somebody has enough trust and confidence in us to pay us $599 to put their kids in prep, I darn sure think that kid needs to do what they're supposed to do. So now you may have a mom or a dad who said, oh, well, if they don't take the practice test, that's fine. But it's their reputation that's on the line to say, oh, why would you go take their prep course? Because, our kids took it and they didn't even get it right. Well, their test scores didn't go up. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. So we're putting accountability in it, whether the parents like it or not, because I don't like people saying, oh, well, that prep course doesn't work. Our prep course works if the kids work. Got it? So now you're going to do weekly progress reports to the parents, and I assume the kids get copied on it, every Wednesday for the previous week. Now, we're going to hold the kids accountable, and then if they don't do what they're supposed to do and their scores don't come up, this is no skin off our back because, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that the kids are successful. Because listen, I sit all day, every day, and look and see how expensive it is, ridiculously expensive to put the kids through college. So sometimes I think God knew what he's doing when he didn't give me my own kids because I just get spend all my money on myself. But if I were a parent and I were looking at a minimum of $100,000 to send a kid to WVU or Marshall, let me tell you something. If I invested $599 in that kid, you better do what you're supposed to do. Okay? So after we try to hold them accountable, if they don't do what they're supposed to do, not my problem. Okay? And so you're giving them these recommendations. If you see that a student is struggling in math, you can make the recommendation. I think the student needs to have just an hour or two of private tutoring. You get a 10% discount off because what the program will do will drill down and find their weaknesses. Because, again, I don't like doing the buckshot thing. If a kid can't do exponents, we need to figure that out. So we've got that. Then why don't you explain on this whole accountability thing how we're going to do when the kids want to retest. So, you're going to be able to monitor. Well, you'll be sending it to the parents every week, how much percentage of the class the kids have done and all that. So we don't have a guarantee because everybody calls up and goes, yeah, do you have a guarantee? No, I can guarantee you this. If the kids do what they're supposed to do, their scores are going to go up. But if they don't, I can guarantee you they won't. So we don't have any guarantees. But we do have a reward for good hard work, right? So tell everybody what we're going to do with kids who want to retest after they've taken this course.
Yep, so for students who, like Jamie said, want to take a future test and they want to use the software for an additional period of time, we're offering a discount for students who do what they're supposed to do. So if the student does 85 to 100% of the program material, they get a 100% discount, meaning for 8 weeks prior to their future test date, they can access that software and do continued test prep. If the student does 70% to 84%, they get a 50% discount. Now, if the student does less than 70% of the overall program, then they have to pay full price. So it's not going to be the full price, the $599. It'll be at our lower tier without the live Q&A sessions, proctored practice tests, and progress reports. So they'll be on their own at that point. They're just doing the test prep for additional practice.
And they can find on our website the differences in all of the retake options for the different prices. But I think that's really important because, I want to put all of my rising juniors in test prep. The big problem is if they haven't had Algebra 2 yet, because there's a lot of Algebra 2 on the test. So we really try to look at where the student is in their math and where they are and when's the best time for them to take it. The one reason I wanted to make the courses 8 weeks is because I think slow and steady wins the race. Remember, the tortoise won. And I think that we were trying to cram it all in there in 5 weeks, and it was like taking a drink out of a fire hydrant for the kids. It's just too much. And again, if they missed 1 week, that was 20% of the class, and then they had to do 40% the next week. It's just too much with school. So for my students who are in the graduation club, I sit down and figure out when you're going to test anyway. But I think if somebody else who doesn't have enough sense to figure out why they need to work with me first just wants to talk to you about when do you think it is, I think that, we need to work around sports seasons and all the busy time, because some kids are just so busy they don't have time to do it. And part of what makes me sad is, the kids just have a completely bad mindset about test prep. And I did too. Like I said, it's a hemorrhoid. I don't know how to make it fun or sexy. But if they have a different mindset and say, I'm going to embrace this test. This test will give me more money than anything I can do for college. This test will get me out of here. This test will get me where I want to go. This test will teach me I can get ready. So, you're an athlete, Ethan. You know how athletes watch the videos of the other team so they can learn how to strategize around them? That's how I feel like this is. You've got to learn how to out-strategize the test. The test doesn't have to be your enemy. The test could be your best friend. Like the PSAT in the 11th grade, if you hit in the 99th percentile and are a national merit finalist, $250,000 scholarship. Now, that's free money. That's $500,000 that parents have to earn after taxes to get back down that. Now, you tell me you can't spend 40, 50 hours of test prep to maybe earn $250,000. I do have a finance degree, but by golly, you can't do that in the stock market. I don't care who you are. So I think parents have a lot riding on standardized testing. Kids need to have a different mindset about it and embrace it instead of dreading it. But I think a lot of that is working it into the kids' schedule when it's convenient for them, when they have downtime. And that's why we're doing the 8 weeks, so that it doesn't feel completely overwhelming. And that's why we're doing the Q&A sessions. And that's why, you're here to do the weekly progress and, to help parents out. So the one thing that I do want to say to parents is the best thing you can do for your kids for test prep is put them in this course with us and then let us have them and let us hold them accountable. Because I think a lot of times, and this is just me over all of these years, the pressure that parents put on the kids for standardized testing just adds to it. It just makes it even worse. And the kids, when they get the scores back and, like my mom and her head spinned around and, it just was devastating. One, because I felt like I'd let her down. But knowing what I know now, the ACT and the SAT is really, really basic math. It's pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry. Well, I hadn't seen that in years, and plus I'd forgotten it. So kids, when they come into prep, by the time they get in 11th grade, they're so far ahead of this material, as long as they've already had algebra 2, right? So for kids, they've got to understand this is not teaching you how to do math. This is refreshing you. You have not seen 1-2 step algebra problems since middle school. Once kids realize, this is not like I have to study. This is like you have to go back and refresh because you can't remember it, which is what happened to me. And so why my mom demented me over the math, because she was like, how could your worst section be math? Well, okay, I was dramatically ahead of that. I had completely forgotten it. Now, I have no excuse for why I didn't get the golden horseshoe with my dad, other than I told him, Dad, half the time I just tune you out like any normal teenager, right? But anyway, test prep is important, and you got to learn it as a kid, because going forward, you're going to have to get used to taking standardized tests, whether it's the LSAT, the MCAT, the GRE, the VCAT, the DAT. So just at a young age, when they're 15 or 16, get it in their head that they can do it. They just got to put a little work into it, right? If kids put as much work into the ACT and the SAT as they do as to learning how to kick a soccer ball or dance on their toes, they would all make perfect scores. They understand why they got to put football pads on and go out in 100-degree heat so they can make it to the state championship. But they don't understand why they got to sit for 1 hour and study for ACT to SAT. It's the darndest concept.
Yep, so our first prep course will prepare students for the October 18th ACT. So that course will start on August 26th and take students all the way up until October 16th, 2 days prior to the test. After that, we'll be hosting a prep course for the February 14th ACT, and that one will start, I believe that's December 9th. We're taking a 2-week break on the live sessions due to holiday breaks. So from December 22nd to the beginning of January, we won't be doing live sessions. Students will still have access to the test prep software. We just won't be in the office. After that, we'll have the March 14th SAT prep course. So that one will start, I believe, January 20th. And from there, we'll have a May 2nd SAT, and April 11th ACT, June 13th ACT, July 11th ACT, and I forgot to mention a June 6th SAT prep course.
Now, kids can't jump in the middle of this, right? They gotta get in it from the beginning. So people need to plan ahead. That's a big thing.
Yeah, so it is online, self-paced, but also in terms of the proctored practice test, preparing for specific tests. If you join 4 weeks into the prep course, you've already missed 2 practice tests. You're going to get 1 full-length practice test, half the live sessions. You're just not going to be fully prepared for the upcoming test. So, I mean, you're just putting yourself at the disadvantage there by joining late. Just hold off, take the following test.
Either that, or we've got the one that's 100% self-paced, where, when they start it, then they've got 8 weeks. They don't have any support. I mean, they can start that then. I mean, that's going to be their only option, is they start it and miss, like, okay, jump on this boat and you're on your own, paddle hard. So I think that's important. But to wrap it up, we've listened to our students and our tutors and the data, and we've really tried hard to figure out how to adjust and tweak things that make it much more enjoyable and favorable for the kids, yet get them used to what college is going to be like when they go to college and take an asynchronous and online class. It's going to be the exact same format. And then, how do we hold the kids accountable and to the, these evolving demands of standardized testing? These tests didn't change for years. And all of a sudden, the last couple of years, it's just dramatic changes on everything. So we're just scrambling all the time to keep up with the changes. I think that I'm going to love this new format, and I'm excited to try it out. And hopefully it will be a great format for the kids to be hugely successful, make great use of mom and dad's money, because that's a really big thing for me. I don't like having people just waste money. To me, you got to give people quality work. So it starts August the 26th. If you have a rising senior who has not qualified for a promise or who is just really trying to get their scores up, it has to be this one. If you've got a rising junior who really wants to kill the PSAT and become a national merit scholar, it's got to be this one. It's got to be this course. So if you've got a rising junior or rising senior, you better get on this course. Right, Ethan? So, Ethan, to wrap up, like a few years ago, my New Year's resolution was I was going to do the ACT and the SAT question of the day because you know how much I hate test prep. Ugh. Oh, I did it like 3 days, and I was like, forget that. I'm glad I'm out of school, and I don't have to do that anymore because I was like, oh, no wonder these kids don't like it. But anyway, we tried to make it as fun and warm and helpful as we can, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I'm right there with you. I attempted a practice test probably 2 weeks ago, got 10 questions in, and realized I never have to take this test again, and I don't plan on doing it.
I know you're young, and so you're not far away from when you were having to test. You remember how it was, and I just feel bad for the kids a lot of times when their parents just put so much pressure on them. I just hate for kids to have a knot in their stomach about what they should and should not do. So hopefully everybody will go into our prep course, and parents will be happy, and kids will be happy, and we're happy, and when mommies and daddies are happy, we're all happy, and we love that. So thanks, Ethan, for all of your hard work on this prep course for the whole summer. You all out there in listener land, he's worked his little patootie off. And we have had many meetings about how we want it to come across, and I think he's done an excellent job. So we're really happy to roll it out, and then we'll just tweak it as we go forward if we find something that we like better or something that we think we need to do. But anyway, Ethan, they can sign up for the course online from our website, or they can call you. And the phone number is 304-556-4807. And if they want to text you, Ethan, what's the number? Because I don't know what the number is. Text us.
Our text number is 304-449-5807.
Oh, that's so confusing. Did I pick that number out? I think I did. Gosh. I know sometimes after all these years of business, I look back and I think, what was I thinking? I just don't know. But anyway, here we are. Okay. All right. Well, we love everybody out there. We love your kids. We want everybody to be successful. So pick up the phone, call us, or if you're a little millennial or whatever, text us. And if you're really introverted, just email us. It doesn't matter. All right, Ethan, thank you so much. And we're signing off for the test prep.